Story 1. Lie to get us to watch your kids? I can play dirty, and so can your children. Also features weaponized baked goods.
The backstory is that I have an annoying cousin Louise, aka Poo-Covered Lou, who is heavily into competitive child raising and off-roading her 4WD in my front garden. She's no longer allowed on our property. I don't speak directly to Lou anymore, but I do speak to her mom, Auntie, and my fiancé, Martin, is friends with Lou's husband Mike. I don't work on Thursdays, so I was still getting dressed when I heard a car and some voices. My cat sprinted off the bed and hid in the bathroom about a nanosecond before my cousin's Wonder Kids, 8M and 6F, burst in. I have no idea why they weren't at school. My fiancé was just behind them, looking a bit panicked, very unusual state for him. Apparently Louise had to take Auntie to the hospital and urgently needed someone to look after the kids. Martin, being the compassionate soul that he is, agreed. So we spent the morning looking after the Wonder Kids and our own Vampira, nearly 2F, and she Vance to gnaw your broccoli. Just after lunch, healthy and nutritious, Martin tried ringing Lou to get a progress report. No answer. No biggie, they were in a hospital. But he thought he'd try ringing Lou's husband Mike to see if he'd heard anything. Turned out Mike had no idea the kids were with us, they were supposed to be with his mum. The hospital visit was an outpatient clinic for Louise, not an urgent trip for Auntie, as implied. Auntie was there for moral support. Mike offered to come and collect the Wonder Kids, but since he's self-employed and was working on a site about 2 hours away, we agreed to keep the Wonder Kids for the rest of the day. Mike rang back and said Louise would collect the kids at 5 p.m. I was fuming. Poo-Covered Lou had lied and taken advantage and managed to worm her way back in. So I decided to play dirty. Literally. I took the Wonder Kids for a walk to the park, while Martin took our youngest to do some shopping. It was a nice winter's day, and the kids ran around, fell over, climbed on all the play equipment, jumped in all the muddy puddles, and found a heap of treasures and put them in their pockets to show their mum. We did wash faces and hands afterwards, and cleaned shoes as best we could, but Lou hadn't provided a change of clothing. So by the time she arrived at 6 p.m., on time for her, the Wonder Kids were tired, happy, hungry, and absolutely filthy and keen to show off their treasures. Louise, on the other hand, was not happy, and made the Wonder Kids leave their treasures on the nature strip, dirtying their hands again. Then, when the kids were strapped into their car seats, it was time to enact the final part of my petty revenge. Martin produced the shopping ID asked him to get, and gave them a paper bag each. I explained they were a little treat for the journey home, to tide them over. Inside each bag was a sweet bun, known in our house as instant diabetes. They are filled with strawberry jam, iced with gooey pink icing, and liberally dusted with desiccated coconut. According to my dad, by the time they reached home the Wonder Kids were covered in jam and icing as well as dirt and they didn't want dinner. My kids ate their veggies, Lou. The back seat of Lou's car was also covered in dirty, sticky fingerprints and coconut. Apparently Lou's not happy, and even though she's vacuumed, she's still finding little shreds of coconut in the back seat. And oh dearie me, so sad, we're never allowed to look after her kids ever again. Ever.
Comment 1. Have you ever heard of caffeine-enhanced chocolate? I used to be on my cousin's emergency list for her grandkids. She thought they were angels, she was wrong. After I told her they had no respect for closed doors, or any area explicitly designated as off-limits, and she refused to back me up on that multiple times. They need to explore and discover without limits, she said. I bought 3 boxes, yes, boxes, of different caffeinated chocolate, and left 3 bars in one of the off-limits rooms in my house, in my own dresser drawer. She called at 11:30 p.m. after picking them up at 10 o'clock, our agreement was 8:30, asking why they were so awake. I told her they'd told me that she herself had told them not to worry about my limits about their access to my own home. I told her that even after telling them anything they ate at my house that I did not give them might not be good for them, they entered a forbidden area and stole from me. Good luck, they each had 150 milligrams of caffeine, and I was done babysitting, permanently. Family Grapevine says they were active until 5:30 a.m. I have not been asked to babysit the jerk side of the family since. The good cousins have no worries about me and their kids/GKs. Respect is respect. Comment 2, Hokey Pokey guest list says, do you like to play games? I do too. Bravo.
Comment 3. I've seen store signs that say if you don't supervise your kids, well, give them an espresso and a puppy.
Comment 4, sounds like you need to stop by to be the kids' favorite auntie while Lou is away. Wouldn't it be just lovely for them to have treats random days? Wouldn't they just love some outdoor time while their mom is busy? Don't you think Lou will just be thrilled they have such a close relationship with their auntie? Comment 5, we're never allowed to look after her kids ever again. Congratulations. Desired effect achieved.
Comment 6. PCL should have absolutely known that you would exact a sweet, sweet revenge. It's like she's ignored all the other times. Not so clever is PC Lou.
Story 2. Destroyed property and revenge.
Years ago, I, now 48M, used to live in far upstate New York. During the winter, snowmobiles graced the frozen landscape. My place was situated in a small town with a fairly good-sized yard. During the previous summer I had done a ton of landscaping, $30,000 worth, with a nice fence running the length of the property. During the winter it had snowed significantly, which left all of 3 feet of the fence, black against white, visible from the snowdrifts. One day I was approached by some people out on their snowmobiles if it was possible to cut through my lawn. I aptly replied by pointing out the fence and explaining it runs all the way around my place and there are no access points except for my driveway. They went on their way afterwards. About a week later the snow had come again but didn't leave any drifts. I was at work and got a call from one of my neighbors telling me my fence was destroyed near the back and there were tracks from snowmobiles. When I got home later that day, I inspected the fence and sure enough it was true. Needless to say, over the course of the winter, more tracks kept showing up on my property. So the following summer I invested into a better fence consisting of reinforced concrete to look like wooden fence. After the first snowfall and the next day of work I came home to a wrecker in my driveway picking up 6 snowmobiles that were totaled and plenty of sheriffs asking the riders why they had chosen to ride through a privately owned property. They told the officers I gave them permission, to which I replied by pointing out the no trespassing sign I had on the front of the fence. They all received tickets and their snowmobiles were confiscated. As a side note, my neighbor drove 6-foot rebar into the front of his lawn near the sidewalk, leaving enough just above the ground level to tear up the tracks on the sleds, the same time I replaced my fence.
Comment 1. Too bad you couldn't sue them for last year.
Comment 2, loved this story. Grew up in the countryside in Ontario. I hated the joyriders who came on our property making a noise and disturbing our animals. Never listened to us. Comment 3, reminds me of watching 3 lights dancing through our private forest trail at about 1 a.m., going way too fast for the condition of that trail. I said to my wife, I wonder if they know about the unfilled pond we dug last summer? 3, 2, 1 The lights went dark, guess not. Snow showed back there the next day and found red plastic, green plastic, and yellow fiberglass at the bottom of the hole. The offending neighbor never mentioned the incident.
Comment 4. Fucking Deegans from upcountry.
Comment 5, beautiful work. Makes me feel all warm inside. Comment 6, I don't know about New York, but Ontario has plenty of trails. No need to go rogue. My neighbor at the cottage is very involved with the local chapter of the Snowmobile Association, and this type of stuff drives him crazy. One of his biggest concerns is assholes causing damage, leading to property owners banning snowmobiles.
Story 3. Amphibious drone? Not this time.
I am a licensed ham radio operator, a former military comms tech, and a retired civilian electrical engineer, comms, security, etc. My backyard pool is surrounded by a 10-foot, 3-meter, high privacy/security fence. Next-door neighbor got a new drone and liked to hover it just high enough in his backyard to see over the fence whenever I had guests over for a swim. I could see the camera was pointed at the pool. Nothing I could legally do at that point, since it was hovering over his property. One day, I was messing around, legally, in the upper UHF bands when I noticed the pitch of his drone's rotors changing every time I keyed up, transmitted, on a certain UHF frequency. Being the conscientious radio operator that I am, I noted the frequency and avoided it whenever he was playing with his drone. That is, until one evening when my wife went for a swim. Almost as soon as she got in the water, I heard the drone's rotors rev up. Looking out the open window, I saw the drone hovering over the pool. I switched on the UHF rig, checked the frequency for traffic, told my wife to get out of the pool, and keyed up the rig as soon as she did. The drone apparently went into some kind of safe mode and slowly lost altitude, right over the deep end of the pool. After it hit the water, I spoke my call sign into the mic, said test complete, and shut off the rig. I finished logging the test just as the neighbor knocked on my door. The neighbor asked if I had seen his drone. That's when my wife appeared from the back and said there was something in the pool. Sure enough, it was the drone. My wife took a video on her phone of me fishing it out, my neighbor identifying it as his, and me handing it back to him. I said, maybe you should fly it in a park or something. All he said was, thanks. Haven't seen him fly another drone ever since.
Comment 1. Is a packet BBS or some other authorized, unattended beacon allowed on or near that frequency? If you follow my drift. 73. Comment 2. Your neighbor is a real creep. Comment 3. Many years ago, when I was but a lad, I worked at Radio Shack after school for some pocket money. I always liked when the ham ops came in because they always had some interesting project to talk about. No point to this story, just saying ham ops tend to be interesting folks. Comment 4. The neighbor's drone is now packed in a large bag full of rice and high hopes. Comment 5. Revenge is a dish best served on the UHF band.
Comment 6. From an old Army Commo chief, bravo.